Good evening and welcome to NTV Tonight on this 14th day of May, the day the World Health Organization warned that the coronavirus may never go away. Well, within the last hour, the number of people infected with the virus is 4,485,940, and the number of those that have died from the virus has hit the 300,000 mark and even surpassed it. In Africa, there are 75,261 cases and 2,537 deaths. And in the US, 1,438,426 people have been infected and 85,699 have died. We close in on Kenya's figures in a moment, but first, the day's top stories. Tonight, the coronavirus creeps along East Africa's trucking corridor.
Tuko tunaomba serikali yetu ya Kenya iweke mikingamo kabiti kabisa. Wengine wanasafirishwa usiku na ndio wanatuletea corona Kenya.
And it's now straining the region's sense of community.
As members of the East African community, we are in constant discussion with member states on how best this matter can be handled.
Also tonight, the WHO warns the coronavirus may be around for a long time as the global death toll soars. Plus,
I haven't finished, Shadrach. I was answering to you. Sorry, my son. Just be patient. Don't be excited.
All rise. Virtual court is in session.
Mr. Asitiba.
My lord, I'm present.
I want to see you on the screen. You are showing a screen.
Am I clear, sir?
The wheels of justice zoom forward online, but it's a strange new world. And also tonight, all gassed up, but nowhere to go. Petrol prices drop by biggest margin in 13 years amid government's stay-at-home advice.
NTV Tonight with Smriti Vidyarthi.
Thanks so much for joining us. Flora Atieno is our sign language interpreter tonight. Now, as countries around the world shut their borders to stop the spread of the coronavirus, the surge of people pouring unmonitored into the country through its porous boundaries is the latest source of pain as the government grapples to keep the virus in check. Police in Isebania, along Kenya's border with Tanzania, arrested 10 people trying to sneak into the country from Tanzania. Among them were 4 Tanzanian nationals who were heading to Masara. NTV's Zainab Ismail has the latest on the broader border concerns.
As the number of infections flare up along the country's pervious borders, frustrations among communities sharing these borders are also boiling up. In Esebania, on Kenya's border with Tanzania, the spike in the number of infections has challenged the community bond between the two neighbors' communities.
Wengine wanasafirishwa usiku, wanapitia vichorochoro, wanaleta huku hivyo, na ndio wanatuletea corona Kenya. Na wakati Magufuli amesema kwamba eti corona iko Tanzania, shughuli zote Tanzania zinaendelea, na sisi Kenya hakuna makanisa, misikiti hakuna, shule hakuna. Tulikuwa tunaomba hata mpaka wetu ufungwe kabisa.
Wote ni mandugu, sisi ni Wakuria na wale ni Wakuria, ni watu wetu wote. Tumeomba hata kama ni jeshi weke mpaka Nyamaranya na Morabu yote ifungwe hiyo mpaka tunaomba hiyo tafadhali.
Migori so far has recorded 10 infections and the county government believes those responsible crossed undetected from Tanzania.
At another border point of Isebania, Migori County, we continue to witness emerging positive cases. The government is closely monitoring these developments and putting in place interventions.
Acknowledging the risk that the porous borders poses in the spread of COVID-19 in the country, the government is now asking Kenyans living along the border counties to ensure community vigilance is enhanced.
Our porous borders are the ones that have become the latest high-risk areas in the transmission of the disease. We do appeal to our communities living within and around our border counties to actively exercise the Nyumba Kumi community policing. We should be vigilant and we should report any suspicious individuals who may use panya routes to get into the country.
With most East African countries under strict restrictions to curb the coronavirus, truck drivers are among the few allowed to circulate as they ferry essential goods across the region. However, border testing has revealed a high number of cases among the drivers, and alarm is growing over their potential to be super spreaders. 8 truck drivers from Tanzania have already been denied entry into the country after they tested positive for COVID-19 at the Namanga border.
Out of the same samples, 8 individuals were truck drivers from Tanzania who also tested positive and were referred back to Tanzania. 7 at the Namanga border and 1 at Hispania border.
Kenya had on Wednesday declared the border town with Tanzania as a high-risk area. A mobile laboratory will be deployed at the Namanga border town to help prevent cross-border infections amid rising infections along the border points. Zainab Ismail, NTV.
Right, now let's break down the latest numbers. And the total number of COVID-19 infections in the country has risen to 758 after 21 more people tested positive in the last 24 hours. Now, out of the new 21 cases, 14 are male and 7 are female, all aged between 7 and 79 years. Mombasa reported 12 cases, Kajiado and Nairobi counties 4 cases each, while Uasin Gishu reported 1 case. Now, the Ministry of Health says 3 of the patients had been discharged after they tested positive for the virus, and then raising the tally for recoveries to 284. However, 2 more patients died in Nairobi, bringing the total number of fatalities in the country to 42. And now, facing the reality that the country's borders may be too porous to keep infections out, Kenya now says she is in contact with other East African countries to find a common approach against the virus. But as Leila Mohammed reports, the pandemic could strain relations between neighbours as each country tackles the pandemic the best ways it sees fit.
For weeks, Kenya could breathe easier as the number of imported infections wilted down and could now pay close attention to community transmissions.
Each country would first of all want to secure its population.
Due to the nature of human interaction, it was not possible to keep the virus from crossing the border.
But new infections from the country's porous borders are the government's latest migraine as they redefine the sense of community among neighbours with a shared border.
And the borders are now our key area of focus.
Just this week, senior health officials were deployed to the Namanga border post, where about 10 cases of COVID-19 have been reported from truck drivers of various nationalities seeking access into the country.
The objective of this team was to assess the situation and to recommend interventions, particularly for truck drivers who are now becoming another weak link in the fight against the virus.
On the Kenya-Uganda border, tens of trucks line the busy Busia and Malaba highways as the drivers wait to be tested before crossing the borders. Kenya, on her part, has announced a 48-hour mandatory testing for drivers before trucks can leave the port of Mombasa to other parts of East Africa. Every day, hundreds of trucks fan out from East Africa's main ports in Kenya and Tanzania, carrying cargo to the landlocked hinterland, and fears are rising they are becoming a major vector for the coronavirus.
Countries have the leverage, they have the leverage to act in whatever way they want. But then when you have a disease that is being passed on from one country to another, infectious diseases, then it calls for countries to then take into consideration the effects of their actions, what their actions will have on neighbors.
But even as countries do their bit to curb the spread of the disease, concerns on the treatment of those moving goods across the borders could bring tension among friendly nations.
Trade and security issues and peace issues have been prioritized. That's the framework of engagement in the region. Health has not been a priority, and therefore we have not had the mechanisms of how to deal with this are lacking. So it doesn't come as a surprise when you see what is happening in Uganda, because health is not, even if you look at our foreign policy, health is not one of the pillars.
In their meeting this week, East African leaders agreed to keep track of the pandemic by tracking the truck drivers digitally from their points of departure to their destinations. And with the pandemic on their hands, East African leaders are now wading into uncharted territory.
Countries are now really under strain, and this issue is going to drive a wedge because we are not prepared.
As members of the East African community, we are in constant discussion with member states on how best this matter can be handled for the safety and well-being of our community.
Health is not an issue for doctors alone. As you've seen, health can affect trade, health can affect security, it can affect transport, it can affect the society, issues to do with religion. So this is not something that one country or one government can claim to have better approach.
But the absence of a communal approach to the pandemic within the East African community is raising concerns about how to effectively deal with a shared problem.
Kenya and other countries have been pushing for debt relief. So you need to pull together and, as a region, to advocate or to champion these issues. So when a president or when a country is not part of these talks, then the solidarity that is needed, the unity, as we say, unity is strength, is tested. Government to really come out and be open about the seriousness of the disease by announcing or giving figures regarding the status of infections and deaths.
The US Embassy in Dar es Salaam has raised concern about the rising and unreported cases of COVID-19 in that country, calling on its citizens to exercise caution while outdoors. Meanwhile, Center for Disease Control Africa says it is ready to give Tanzania all the help she needs to get her people tested and release up-to-date data on the pandemic. Director Dr. John Nkengasong says it's not just for her own benefit, but for that of the region as well. Leila Mohammed, NTV.
As some countries around the world begin gradually easing lockdown restrictions imposed in a bid to stop the novel coronavirus from spreading, the WHO says the virus could become a constant presence, joining the mix of viruses that kill people around the world every year. According to the Ministry of Health, Kenyan researchers are working on a modelling based on the possibility of the virus being endemic like HIV. Eunice Omolo has the details.
Speaking at a briefing on Wednesday, WHO Emergencies Director Dr. Michael Ryan warned that it was impossible to predict when the pandemic will be fully controlled, and instead called the world to adjust to what might be the new reality.
I think it's important to put this on the table. This virus may become just another endemic virus in our communities, and this virus may never go away.
In Kenya, the Ministry of Health says it is preparing for such an eventuality.
According to our experts and scientists who are also doing modeling, that this picture remains true. Indeed, this virus may be with us for a long time to come, and therefore it requires us, one, to maintain our current containment measures, and to ensure that, two, we can actually chart a way forward as to how we are able to actually live with corona.
Countries will be forced to continue with the new normal or adjust to the reality of the longer stay of the virus among the populations, with more than half of humanity facing some form of lockdown since the coronavirus crisis began.
I'm sure you've seen different countries are putting in play interventions as to how they can continue with a new normal, because it will never be back to the olden days. This is a new normal, and therefore the same measures are being evaluated within the country. How do we maintain continuity of business while ensuring that we have social and physical distancing measures and that we are actually able to prevent the rising cases of coronavirus?
The virus first emerged in Wuhan in China late last year and has since infected more than 4.2 million people and killed nearly 300,000 worldwide.
HIV has not gone away, but we've come to terms with the virus, and we have found the therapies and we've found the prevention methods, and people don't feel as scared as they did before, and we're offering life to people with HIV, long, healthy lives to people with HIV. And I'm not comparing the two diseases, but I think it is important that we're realistic, and I don't think anyone can predict when.
The UN, meanwhile, warned that the pandemic was causing widespread mental distress, particularly in countries where there's a lack of investment in mental health care. WHO has urged governments to make mental health considerations a part of their overall response. Eunice Omolo, NTV.
Well, here's another problem that may not go away. For close to 2 weeks, the judiciary has been conducting most of its proceedings online as part of measures to minimize physical contact and stop the spread of the coronavirus. Chief Justice David Maraga's announcement was unprecedented for the justice system, which is typically slow to adapt to new technology. And it's so far a nightmare, as some lawyers put it, and as NTV's Silas Apollo reports.
When Chief Justice David Maraga introduced technology as an alternative of litigating matters in court, the intention was to reduce the spread of COVID-19, while at the same time ensure there was a reduced backlog of cases in courts.
But as the wheels of justice zoom forward online, it's been a strange new world for a department that has often struggled to keep up with technology.
My lord, yes, we can hear you clearly. Are you able to hear me now?
The idea is to minimize physical interaction, and it scales so far as the coronavirus forced not just the judiciary, but court users to join the 21st century overnight.
There's a lot of background noise. Today, before Justice Wasilwa, there was a matter in which the judge lamented, who are those making noise in the background? They're discussing about a trip to Dubai, they're discussing about the maize that they were boiling. There are advocates who do not treat the online platform as a courtroom. And perhaps we may need to instill discipline amongst our colleagues.
Around the world, court sessions have moved online, and as a sign of just how far standards are already slipping into the once hollowed courtrooms, a judge in Florida in the United States had to reprimand a lawyer for zooming into court while still in bed. For Harvey and his colleagues, not much was done to prepare them for the changes. A number of law firms are also yet to invest in technology.
It's quite apparent this platform is only effective for mentions and directions on the hearing of applications. A majority of my members are of the view that this thing is not workable. Courts should and must reopen.
In most cases, sessions start and run smoothly, but there are often cases where it degenerates into shouting matches between lawyers and judges as they grapple with the video conferencing technology.
It's the same machine we used since Saturday.
In one of the sessions, the judge was forced to suspend proceedings for 15 minutes due to poor connectivity. Conference calls may also present a problem for the open justice principle, the century-old notion that anyone can walk in off the street to sit in the courtroom's public gallery and watch justice taking place. The judiciary says it is aware of what it sees as just teething problems, but the process has been a success overall.
We are really happy that, to a large extent, we have a number of people who've been able to access services in the judiciary through these platforms we are offering. We are just looking with the ICT team at what the figures we have. 450 so far in the last week or so hearings have been conducted by use of Zoom.
Omanga says the hope of the judiciary is to eventually improve on the delivery of justice through technology in the long term. Some magistrates and judges have since opted for open court sessions in the administration of justice, hoping to beat the virus and at the same time reduce cases at their disposal. Silas Apollo, NTV.
Zooming into court while still in bed certainly does sound tempting, but as it was stated there does of course need to be some sense of discipline. All right, now officials from the Ministry of Health have just 3 days to end a stalemate with healthcare workers that threatens to paralyze operations countrywide in the midst of the coronavirus pandemic. The ministry says it is in talks with the workers and union leaders regarding their demands for better workplace protections. 17 cadres of health workers have threatened to go on strike on Monday next week should the government fail to address their concerns.
Na kama basi matakwa yetu yale ambayo tuliweza kuyatoa hapa hayajatekelezwa na hatujaweza kusikizwa, tumetangaza kutakuwa na mgomo wa hudumu wa afya nchini kote.
Healthcare workers are basically the heartbeat of this response. And so we are in negotiations and discussions with them to evaluate their concerns and to be able to come to a middle ground where we can actually move forward with this. And as we do this, one of the issues that we are addressing is actually PPEs. And that's why we have 2 trucks right next to us today that are here to bring together some almost 11,000 sets.
All right, we take a break at this point, and we do so on a positive note. Russia is celebrating a rare bit of good news as a 100-year-old woman left a Moscow hospital after fully recovering from the coronavirus. In the country's first reported case of a survivor that old, the woman, Pelageya Poyakorva, was discharged on her 100th birthday, according to the clinic in Moscow treating her. All right, have plenty more after this break, and just look at her. What a story. Do stay with us.
Disinfect and protect your home with Jik. Jik kills 99.9% of illness-causing germs. Disinfect floors, kitchen and bathroom surfaces, and wash white clothes, towels and dishcloths with Jik bleach. Just Jik it.
Can you tell Kinyanju to come to my office immediately? Good morning. Good morning. Mimi sipendi unapanguza floor. Hiyo dust uache hapa kwa meza. Clean up. Kinyanju, this is a problem, yeah? Next time uende ununue selector yako, utengeneze sandwich zako, uachane na sandwich za boss.
Selector, the difference is in the taste.
Hii uende weke kwa ile githeri yako, eh?
Mapepe, mashari yode. Mapepe.
Every Saturday on Team Republic Live, we throw down a party right here on the baddest playground in East Africa.
Watch Mala Conscience, I represent, and you are watching Teen Republic.
On Teen Republic.
We bring you the hottest celebrity lineups to the hottest playlists across board.
In the kitchen cooking up, got your own bread.
The most outstanding young entrepreneurs doing mind-blowing businesses on Grind Yango. The ship is navigated by the sweet and sizzling Tracy Wanjiru, the fierce baddest presenter Martin Kimathi, and the party DJ himself, king of all bashments,
laying down the hits,
DJ Bash. Features every Saturday from 11 a.m. on Team Republic Live.
Oh, yani aje, mimi ndo Jonte Fresh. Mimi ndio nimetambulika hii Gikomba yote sekta ya manguo. Jumi transform nguo ordinary za mtush zenye ziuka mna hii harufu ya bail into the freshest Iggy koshi yote. Siri ni hii Ariel mpya ya pink. Na kushow mtush zinang'ara kung'ara kushinda kamera. So clean, so fresh. Makastoma unaisana na hii story. Ninatumia Ariel touch of down mpya tu.
Kira! Kira? Where are you?
Valeria!
That's why you need the superior protection of Mortein 360-degree reach. Only this has 11 fans which enable it to reach the farthest corners. Mortein, total indoor protection.
Behaving normal under these circumstances is having a death wish.
Your world has changed.
Isolation, quarantine, and lockdowns are the new order of the day.
The new order brings work at home and homework online.
Many nations are grappling under stressed health systems and people.
Many people are struggling with their health and well-being during this pandemic.
We focus on health issues affecting Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda, and the rest of the East African region.
That's why we'd like you to join us on NTV every morning as we break down these issues
and update you on your world.
Your world. Your world.
Your world.
Your new normal.
The risk of illness-causing germs is increasing. It is believed that the coronavirus can remain on surfaces in your home for up to 9 days. Touching infected surfaces is one of the ways in which germs spread. Regularly disinfect your floors, countertops, and kitchen surfaces with bleach, and use an effective toilet cleaner inside and outside your toilet bowl. This message is brought to you by Medifact, JIC, and HAPIC.
Mind-blowing music and entertainment. Just move to NTV.
Listen to me. I just found the money that Agatha took away from you. I'm going to give it back to you in exchange for my daughter's life. Let's just leave this place, forget everything, and head back to the States. Because of Erica?
Will you marry me? You don't have to answer right now. I can wait, Erica.
No.
No. Where's the rest of the money?
I'm going to give you the rest of your darn money when you let Agatha go. You can take me with you in exchange for her. Agatha, just go already. Don't you dare hurt my mother. Do you hear me?
Before I change my mind. If I don't get my money after tonight, my dear, I won't hesitate to kill your mother.
Invest in a money rich, the place of peace. Luxury you can afford. Call us today on 0790-300-300 or visit www.optivan.co.ke.
Disinfect and protect your home with JIC. JIC kills 99.9% of illness-causing germs. Disinfect floors, kitchen and bathroom surfaces, and wash white clothes, towels, and dishcloths with JIC bleach. Just JIC it.
Selena!
Toto, where's Mummy?
Today's a toilet day.
What? Oh.
Selena!
Toilet day?
Tomorrow we're hosting a party and it's a matter of my reputation.
It's a toilet, not a white shirt. Even if you spend your entire day cleaning with bleach and detergent, it still won't be party ready.
Impossible!
Challenge! HAPIC 10X. Even if you use bleach and detergent 10 times, they won't give you the same sparkling clean toilet that HAPIC 10X will give you.
Wow!
HAPIC 10X. HAPIC, Kenya's #1 toilet cleaner.
Mr. DJ, Mr. DJ, Mr. DJ.
Let the music hit you, move you, make you end your day perfectly.
I hope you're happy now.
Catch hit after hit of music that gets you grooving on weekday nights. Only on NTV.
Dettol's main objective is to help children protect themselves from diseases. Do you know how we get illnesses like diarrhea, cough, and cold?
No!
They are spread through germs on your hands. Your hands collect germs that causes diseases. You pick up germs from any surface, like when you don't wash your hands after going to the toilet, while playing. And then you can get sick because of germs. That's why you need to fight germs to stay healthy by washing your hands regularly with Dettol soap that gives the best germ protection ever against many illness-causing germs.
Wash, wash, wash your hands. What you have to do is bath, bath, bath yourself. Dettol soap every day. Wash, wash, wash your hands.
Welcome back. Now, entertainment joints where weddings, birthday parties and other occasions would be celebrated have joined the list of businesses that do not have much to celebrate. The government's directives to stop the spread of the coronavirus did not spare their operations, and the easing of restrictions has still not helped improve their fortunes, as NTV's Ngina Kirori reports.
The government's directive that eateries are now allowed to reopen their businesses, albeit while observing government directives, was met with relief from restaurant owners. But for those whose cash cow was weddings and other entertainment bookings, the grass is still not as green. The cows in this case have replaced the original occupants, but they are not so much a source of cash. The merry-go-rounds and the Ferris wheels are now silent, and the well-trimmed lawns have now been replaced by overgrown grass.
I give you this ring.
But it isn't all gloom, as some of these areas are now beginning to see a few customers trickling in as they encourage their occupants to adhere to the rules set by the government.
It is not for we as Denmark, it's for us, Kenyans, all of us. Yes, so it's good everybody to keep distance and also to have masks and also to obey the rules. Because it's not for Uhuru Kenyatta, it's not for the ministers, it's for us all Kenyans.
But for some restaurant owners, this continues to be a case of wait and see.
Though we were given that leeway that we may open as restaurants and hotels, the challenge or the question is, where are those customers going to come from?
This is a valid question, as the businesses slowly recall their operations and still face the challenge of recalling their customers. Ngina Kirori, NTV.
Now, as new clusters of coronavirus infections pop up around the country, in Kawangware, one of the city's hotspots, the community there has found communion in the fight against the pandemic. Operation Va Mask is helping spreading the message, or the right messages, in the fight against the pandemic.
2 weeks ago, Kawangware was mapped as a hotspot for coronavirus infections in Nairobi. Since then, residents have come up with a common ground to fight the pandemic. The program, dubbed Operation Va Mask, is being led by a youth group who walk around the community preaching adherence to the government's directives.
Mambo ya kuvaa mask, kunawa mikono na pia social distance ni kwa sababu watu wetu wamepuuza. Wamefunzwa, wameambiwa, wamepewa hata masks kutoka kwa serikali, kutoka kwa NGOs, kutoka kwa mheshimiwa na wengine, lakini bado unapata mtu ameweka kwa mfuko na anatembea bila mask.
Kama tuko na shida Kawangware, si ni vizuri pia Nairobi wote waache kufanya rationing ya maji, kwa sababu hao wananchi wanahitaji maji. Hii ugonjwa inahitaji sana kunawa mkono hata kuliko hiyo mambo ya sanitizer.
The operation ensures that each individual washes their hands before going into the Kawangware market. They also give masks to those that do not have.
Sio sisi wote wagonjwa. Kwa hivyo bora tu watu wajichunge. Nawa mkono, vaa mask. Hiyo ndio ile kitu ambayo inaweza tusaidia. Kwa sababu serikali maybe haiwezi tupima sisi wote, lakini mtu achukue jukumu la kujichunga.
So far, 17 people are facing charges at the Kasarani Law Court after they were caught breaking curfew restrictions as well as defying COVID-19 rules.
Leo pia tumepata wengine 20 na pia wamepelekwa Kasarani. So pia kesho na kesho kutwa mpaka watu wetu wajue maana, sababu tunapuuza, tunajua kweli kuna ugonjwa, lakini bado ni kama ugonjwa huo hauko karibu na sisi hapa.
The government is encouraging more communities to join the front lines in the fight against the virus through initiatives such as Nyumba Kumi. Ruth Sarmoi, NTV.
Elsewhere, the Law Society of Kenya has defended its decision to withdraw a list of 24 lawyers who were set to be conferred the title of senior counsel as procedural. LSK President Nelson Havi says the names, which included those of former Vice President Kalonzo Musyoka and former Justice Minister and presidential candidate Martha Karua, were submitted without due process. Havi says that a review of the list indicated that most applicants did not meet the criteria set for the conferment of the title, and that the LSK Council was working on a new list which will be published soon.
Out of the 2 elected representatives of the Law Society, it transpired that one had not even met the practice year threshold to be elected. You can imagine. And this is something that was sanctioned by my predecessor. It is turning logic over its head. And then there are elaborate yardsticks upon which the consideration for conferment is to be made. You ought to have appeared before the High Court and argued a minimum of 7 cases of prominence. You ought to have appeared before the Court of Appeal and argued 7 cases. You ought to have appeared before the Supreme Court and argued 7 cases.
Bungoma MCAs finally got their way today after successfully ousting the majority leader of the County Assembly, Florence Wekesa. After a failed attempt last week, the clerk of the Assembly received a notice from 39 MCAs indicating the changes. Juma Nyongesa, the Tuti Marakaru Ward MCA, now replaces Wekesa. Nominated MCA Luke Opwara has also replaced Joseph Maguda of Township Ward as the Deputy Majority Whip. The MCAs accused the two of poor leadership over the exaggeration of figures for the supply of water jerrycans. The scandal saw one jerrycan being priced at 10,000 Kenya shillings. Juma also called on Ford Kenya party officials and leader Moses Wetangula not to interfere with the top assembly leadership.
Katiba imeipatia. Tulikuwa nataka kuona ya kwamba assembly hii inarudi kwa ile independence ambayo katiba imepatia.
Oversight role hiyo ndio itakuwa key kabisa katika kaunti hii. Mambo ya kucompromise hakuna. Sasa hivi waheshimiwa wanaumia kwa ajili ya pesa ndogo ambayo wanatuletea. Na hiyo nataka niwasihi waheshimiwa kwa ungwana. Sisi tulipatiwa nafasi, wacha tuhakikishe ya kwamba hizo pesa na mambo ya lobbying kidogo hiyo iondoke kwa sisi ili wananchi wakuwe na matumaini kwetu.
All right, now let's get a check of your Daily Nation paper tomorrow. It's not just in Jubilee where there's spring cleaning. Taking the cue from President Uhuru Kenyatta, ODM leader Raila Odinga has ordered a crackdown on non-conforming senators and members of the National Assembly. In your Daily Nation tomorrow, find out why the well-coordinated change in parliamentary leadership is crucial to President Kenyatta and Mr. Odinga as they seek to push through the recommendations of the Building Bridges Initiative and to make way for a power-sharing deal. Plus, the World Health Organization's advice to countries to end lockdowns and learn to live with the COVID-19 pandemic has come as Kenya is set to review the restrictions put in place to contain the spread of the virus. So, what awaits Kenyans? Don't miss your copy of the Daily Nation tomorrow. Now, time for another breather, but before that, here is something to warm your heart. As the world continues to honour frontline healthcare workers, police in Nassau County in the United States organised a parade and a pipes and drums concert outside Mount Sinai South Nassau Hospital to honour medical staff in Oceanside, New York. The hospital, located on Long Island, had up to 90 patients on ventilators in its intensive care units at the peak of the epidemic. All right, at this point, we take a break. We will be right back.
Your gums hurt.
Yeah. Does your toothpaste contain sage, eucalyptus, myrrh, chamomile? Oh, that in one toothpaste? Yes, try Colgate Herbal. Colgate Herbal contains nature's best herbs and Colgate's fluoride technology to give you strong teeth and healthy gums. Ah, Colgate Herbal. Let's go. Colgate Herbal for strong teeth and healthy gums naturally.
Leo nimekaa kukukembesha Riang venye utastay safe mtaani, venye kama nuka na rada ni chafu. Riang ya kwanza mtu wangu, kunawa mikono. Hiyo ni sekunde palu, after umewada hapo, unatumia hiyo waba inatiririka. Namba mbekse ni social distancing. Lazima upige gedhugu, lazima mwili wako akue 1.5 meters kutoka kwako ama kitambekse. Rule number 3, kama huwezi kutulia kejani, dunga mask. Jeshi, pamoja tukomeshe corona.
NTV Business News in association with KCB Internet Banking.
Welcome to the business news. Consumers of diesel will be the biggest beneficiaries of the latest review of the maximum prices of petroleum products by the Energy, Petroleum and Regulatory Authority. Effective midnight tonight, a litre of diesel will fetch a maximum of 78 shillings and 37 cents in Nairobi, posting a decline of 19 shillings and 19 cents compared to the present price ceiling. The maximum price of a litre of super petrol in Nairobi is set to decline by 9 shillings and 54 cents to retail at 83 shillings and 33 cents. The price of a litre of kerosene has been revised downward by 2 shillings and 49 cents to retail at a maximum price of 79 shillings and 77 cents per litre in Nairobi. And the sustained downward review of pump prices has been attributed to decline in the price of oil in the global market. The government is formulating a post-COVID-19 policy to source and protect local innovations. The Chief Administrative Secretary in charge of Industry, Trade and Enterprise Development says the government is doing everything possible to ensure that innovations made to combat the COVID-19 pandemic do not go to waste even after the virus is defeated.
Kenyans have been developing local solutions such as ventilators, masks, hand sanitizers and hand washing units, among other protective gadgets to help in curbing the spread of coronavirus. Now the government says it will protect the rights of innovators.
We'll facilitate to ensure that whatever innovation you have made, it is protected by registering that, either patenting it or having your intellectual property registered or whatever technology patented, so that you may continue gaining benefit of your intellectual property.
At least 8 entities, including Kenyan universities like JKUAT, have come up with great innovations. The university's latest innovations include a portable solar-powered prototype ventilator, a contact tracing application, a digital system that predicts COVID-19 infection trends in Kenya, and an automatic solar-powered hand washing machine.
It is therefore my plea to the government and private sector to partner with institutions of higher learning to formulate relevant policies and offer incentives that propel innovations from the idea stage to fruition.
Karanja Kabini is a mechatronics engineer. He says the ventilators, whose materials are locally available, have a high reliability and can operate for 2 weeks without the need for maintenance. The digital contact tracing and case management app can identify who, where and when a person gets into contact with a COVID-19 positive individual with an inclination to public transport usage.
We have rediscovered ourselves as a country, and the role of the ministry is to maintain that momentum and repurpose industry and local production to achieve that going forward.
Researchers drawn from health sciences, IT, remote sensing and aromatics have also developed a web-based digital platform that is key in predicting the COVID-19 infection trends in the country. Judith Cherono, NTV.
A year and 9 months after he took over as the World Bank Country Director for Kenya, Rwanda, Somalia and Uganda, Carlos Felipe Jaramillo is set to leave the Nairobi-based office. This follows his appointment as the World Bank Vice President for Latin America and the Caribbean, where he will lead the bank's response to the COVID-19 crisis in the region. Jaramillo was appointed World Bank Country Director for Kenya in July 2018, even as he served as the Senior Director of the World Bank Group's Macroeconomics, Trade and Investment Global Practice. On April 2nd, 2020, the World Bank Group Board of Directors approved 5.3 billion shillings in immediate funding to support Kenya's response to the global COVID-19 pandemic. Family Bank has set aside 1.3 billion shillings for lending to micro, small and medium-sized businesses operating in the healthcare environment. Through this kitty, micro, small and medium-sized businesses will be able to access credit to procure medical equipment, pharmaceuticals and non-pharmaceuticals, acquire working capital, hospital construction and finance infrastructure development. The 1.3 billion shillings kitty has been set up through a partnership between Family Bank and medical equipment and infrastructure financing company Wellwise Solutions. A new survey shows that Nairobi's Gigiri suburb is home to the most expensive houses in the capital, as Kitengela emerged the least expensive neighbourhood in the 3 months to March. The survey further indicates that, on average, property prices fell for the first time in over a decade. For an in-depth analysis of this and, of course, more stories, get a copy of Your Business Daily tomorrow.
NTV Business News in association with KCB Internet Banking.
We can always talk about your account, online, whenever you like.
Register at your nearest branch for KCB Internet Banking today.
And that is business. We take another quick breather, but first have a look at this. As flowers bloom and wildlife roams free, it's clear to see that nature is thriving across much of the world. In Paris, the French capital, parks have been closed since the beginning of the lockdown, and there's no end in sight after the government shot down a request by the Paris mayor to reopen public gardens. Wow, just look at those pictures. We'll take a closer look at how the rest of the world is responding to the coronavirus pandemic next.
If we continue to behave normally, this disease will treat us abnormally.
Take the following basic protective measures as guided by the WHO. Clean hands frequently with soap and water. Cover nose and mouth when coughing and sneezing with a tissue or flexed elbow. Avoid close contact with anyone with cold or flu-like symptoms. Seek medical care if you have fever, cough and difficulty breathing. And avoid raw and uncooked animal products. Help the world put an end to the spread of respiratory diseases. Message brought to you by Detrex Germ Protection Soap.
Welcome back. Now let's get a check of some international news. And Burundi has expelled World Health Organization experts who were supporting the country's response to the coronavirus pandemic. South Africa is expected to further loosen its nationwide coronavirus lockdown. And China's epicenter of COVID-19, Wuhan, plans to carry out coronavirus tests on the city's entire population. Judith Cherono tells us why.
Burundi booted out the World Health Organization's experts as the country prepares to go to the polls on Wednesday to choose a new president, parliamentarians and local officials. The UN Commission of Inquiry on Burundi said in a statement that it deeply regretted the recent decision by the government to declare the country representative of WHO as persona non grata and 3 of its experts. The investigators also voiced their concerns about the authorities' decision not to apply WHO recommendations on physical distancing to prevent the spread of the coronavirus during the electoral campaign. South Africa is the continent's most industrialized nation that went into a strict 5-tier lockdown at the end of March, but has gradually eased confinement measures since the beginning of this month. President Cyril Ramaphosa stated that his government will begin a consultation process with relevant stakeholders on a proposal that will ensure that most of the country will be placed on level 3 alert by end of this month. And in Wuhan, where the first coronavirus case was reported, plans to conduct COVID-19 tests on the Chinese city's entire population after new cases emerged for the first time in weeks. Officials have been ordered to submit plans to administer nucleic acid tests on all 11 million city dwellers, according to an official notice. The plan comes after Wuhan reported the first cluster of new COVID-19 infections since the city reopened after a 76-day lockdown on April 8th. 6 new cases were reported on Sunday and Monday from a residential compound in Dongshihu district.
All right, and now let's bring you a little bit of politics. And with the relationship between the president and his deputy teetering on the brink, the president may just have given it a little push off the cliff with a sweeping move against the DP's allies in the Senate. The move has elicited mixed reactions depending on which side of the Great Divide one falls, as our senior political reporter Kennedy Moredi now tells us.
The political landscape in the country is changing rapidly. The battle within the architecture of power is heating up, even though the country is still battling the coronavirus pandemic. President Uhuru Kenyatta is said to be looking for new partnerships as 2022 draws closer, hence the spring cleaning in Jubilee. The latest casualties of his ruthless and firm hand as he seeks to regain control of the ruling party are 5 nominated senators who boycotted a parliamentary group meeting he had called for at State House, Nairobi. A group of women MPs allied to the deputy president are the latest to hit out at the president.
We reject and condemn the manner in which our party Secretary General has selectively issued letters to Jubilee women-nominated senators who allegedly did not attend a parliamentary group meeting called at State House. We want to ask him to look again at the list, and he will find that there are 22 senators who have not attended or did not attend the said meeting.
Already, one of the 5 affected senators, that is Christine Zawadi, seems to have recoiled facing the prospect of losing her seat. In a letter, she pledged her loyalty to the president.
We are calling upon our party to immediately stop the threats to female members of parliament who have worked so hard in any event this particular time and during the vote seekings for Jubilee Party and other parties.
It is understood that the 4 others are looking for ways to seek audience with the party's top echelons behind the latest restructuring. Nominated Senator Victor Prengei from the Ogiek community is already whipping the community to ask for forgiveness on his behalf as he handles the party business behind the scenes.
We are pleading with His Excellency the President and the chairman of the secretary of Jubilee, Honorable Rafael Tuju and his team, to reconsider his case. He has been a non-partisan person and is a role model to the Ogier community.
Those within the president's circles are nudging him on, want the purge extended to the National Assembly.
Mimi naunga mkono rais wetu kwa sababu yeye amevumilia sana. Na niwaambie Wakenya tuko na kiongozi ambaye roho yake ni nzuri.
I can only recall my president and a president that I love so much, that let him invite all of us. Let us talk. Let us discuss. And not unless such a time occurs and we find that we have discussed and we have tried to iron out, and some have still gone out of their way, that is maybe the time that we can say that these readers can be told that they have defied.
Hauwezi kuwa umepewa kazi ile kubwa ile sisi wote tunatamani, na inakuwa unachukua hiyo nafasi, inakuwa kazi yako ni kutukana rais. Kwa hivyo ningependa niseme tunaunga rais huyo, tunamuunga mkono na tunataka rais asisimame katika Senate. Tunataka akuje mpaka bunge.
In Nakuru County, there was mixed reactions to the ouster of Senator Susan Kihika as Majority Whip.
Susan, unatufanya tuchoke na wewe na tutachoka na wewe. Labda umeamua unahesabu siku uende nyumbani. Na ndio kwa nini unataka kuharibu, kwa sababu unataka kwenda nyumbani.
Sources within the Jubilee party say the current changes give a glimpse into the president's mind as he seeks out like-minded individuals for a coalition ahead of the next election.
People can expect new formations in the future. We can move on to a bigger house, which will be bigger than Jubilee. Nothing stops us from broadening. In fact, if you ask me, post-coronavirus, this country probably needs a government of national unity to bring everybody together so that people focus on rebuilding this country, getting this country back to work. This country cannot work when you have this kind of antagonism, when you have some people whose only focus is 2022.
The Jubilee wing of the National Assembly is likely to have its parliamentary group meeting early next week, where MPs who have been vocal against the head of state and hold influential positions could be the next on the chopping block. Kennedy Muredhi, NTV.
All right, away from politics and onto the sports news in a moment, but just take a quick look at this, and in hopes to dispel the coronavirus pandemic perhaps, a sea lion at an aquarium park in Yokohama in Japan drew the long-haired, beak-nosed mythical monster known locally as Amabi that is believed to repel plagues. Have a look at that. Wow.
Credit to you if you stay at home. If you must shop online, use your NCBA credit card. Stay home. Stay safe.
For a better tomorrow, don't forget to do the 1, 2, 3 with Colgate every night.
Listen to me. I just found the money that Agatha took away from you. I'm going to give it back to you in exchange for my daughter's life. Let's just leave this place, forget everything, and head back to the States. Because of Erica?
Will you marry me? You don't have to answer right now. I can wait, Erica.
No.
No. Where's the rest of the...
I'm going to give you the rest of your darn money when you let Agatha go. You can take me with you in exchange for her. Agatha, just go already. Don't you dare hurt my mother. Do you hear me?
Please, before I change my mind. If I don't get my money after tonight, my dear, I won't hesitate to kill your mother.
Invest in Amani Ridge, the place of peace. Luxury you can afford. Call us today on 0790-300-300 or visit www.optivan.co.ke.
Let's have a look at the day's sports news. Welcome, my name is Brian Otwal.
Desperate times call for desperate measures. This is perhaps the most suitable way of describing the situation in which some upcoming athletes from Iten, Elgeyo Marakwet County have abandoned their daily training routine and turned to manual work at a construction site as a way of sustaining themselves during this pandemic.
The home of champions, as it is fondly referred to by the locals and within the athletic circles, is the ideal place for athletics training. One Enoch Kemboi came here with only one mission: to train with the best and become the best. He had never imagined in his wildest dreams that one day he'll be working in a construction site for his daily bread.
Venye corona ilifika, maisha ikaanza kuwa ngumu, tukaonelea mazoezi ikae kwanza alafu tutafute chakula.
Here at the construction site, Kemboi and his colleagues, most of whom still don what will be their training shoes, go about their business. Their foreman, who fondly refer to them as Chelabat, a Kalenjin word for runners, occasionally giving them instructions. It is unfamiliar territory to them, but that 400 shillings at the end of the day is their motivation.
Alafu saa zingine naweka na kununua chakula, naweka ingine ili rent tena ndio hii kulipa nyumba. Hasa unakawa tu katikati, unaweka ingine juu hii kazi si kila siku.
Ile kazi yenye hawajazoea kufanya ni vile tu unawahurumia, sababu hakuna wenye wanaweza jimudu kukula.
Before the pandemic outbreak, most of these athletes depended on prize money from local races and helping elite athletes in their training to earn a living. And some of them were looking forward to their first ever commercial races abroad.
Nilikuwa na prepare kwenda kukimbia kwa Zaragoza 10K credit run. Asa hii story na corona sikakuja. Sasa iliharibu kila kitu.
Last week, the sports ministry said that around 3,000 athletes have been identified to benefit from relief food from the government. However, calls have been made to the ministry and the Athletics Kenya to follow up on the upcoming athletes even further.
So most of the athletes, their races were cancelled. So you may realize some of them have depression. So even I had a national office to create a welfare department whereby they will be dealing with counseling, be it as in psychology, be it in finance and all.
The unprecedented COVID-19 times means that we adapt to the new norm. And to these athletes, survival is their concern for now as they wait for things to open up, hoping to take another shot at their destiny. Steve Keter, NTV Sports, Iten.
Indeed, man must live and live abundantly. Moving on, the national beach volleyball team is optimistic Kenya can still participate in the Tokyo Olympic Games qualifiers after World Governing Body FIVB extended the qualification period on Wednesday. The new Olympic ranking qualification deadline has been extended to June 13th, 2021, mirroring the previous deadline of June 14th, 2020, and the Olympic ranking list will be published a day later on June 14th, 2021. Kenya men and women's teams failed to honor the second round qualifiers that were held in Gambia and Nigeria respectively in March after the government banned athletes from traveling for international events due to coronavirus outbreak. Kenya Volleyball Federation is still awaiting feedback on a letter they wrote to CFVB, that is Kavi, requesting for cancellation of results of the second phase qualifiers. And Deaf Athletics Association of Kenya, DAAK, has announced plans to stage this year's National Deaf Track and Field Championships and Deaf Half Marathon in July if the coronavirus pandemic will have been contained by then. DAAK had planned to hold the 7th edition of the Deaf Half Marathon in April 26th in Nakuru, while the National Deaf Track and Field Championships were scheduled for Kasarani Stadium on May 29th to 30th. DAAK's plans to hold the two events in July has been influenced by the announcement of new dates for the World Deaf Athletics Championships to be held in Radom, Poland. The global competition will now run from September 28th to October 3rd, having been earlier scheduled for July 18th to 25th. The exact dates for the national competitions will be announced based on the progress made locally in the curbing of the spread of the pandemic. And Tennis Kenya has today made the second distribution of food hampers to needy tennis families as part of the Stay at Love campaign at Nairobi Club and St. John's Community Centre in Pumwani. The campaign was launched 2 weeks ago as a response to the COVID-19 pandemic, targeting support of 60 tennis families in Nairobi and Mombasa with food rations every 2 weeks for 3 months. After the launch on 30th April, Tennis Kenya called for support from stakeholders, friends of tennis and the public to sustain the campaign for 3-month duration, looking to raise 450,000 shillings. So far, the campaign has raised 305 shillings. That is 305,000 shillings. The first distribution was in Mombasa under the Suleiman Shabal Foundation that distributed hampers to 15 tennis families.
Posting it and letting the kids try and do the same thing and then post it for their teammates to see, and because normally when you demonstrate something for kids on the court, for example, they see you doing it and then you always ask them to do it. They do it in front of their friends. So we've pretty much tried to emulate the same thing with online coaching. If you've got your group of kids, the only thing is we have to use platforms. So there are platforms like Zoom and the rest, which now the coaches are using.
And the government is opening the door for the return of professional football in England after meeting with the Football Association, Premier League and English Football League. Plans for the resumption should include widening access for fans to view live coverage and ensure finances from the game's resumption supports the wider football family. It is now up to the football authorities to agree and finalize the details of the restart plans. Meanwhile, Italian sports minister insisted Wednesday that Serie A football will only resume when the safety of all is guaranteed. Italian teams returned to individual training after a 2-month lockdown on May 4th, with group sessions set for May 18th under very strict conditions. And in Spain, the football season has been on hold since mid-March, and government officials are cautious over when it might resume, despite teams returning to training under strict conditions. And Carlos Sainz will replace Sebastian Vettel at Ferrari with Spanish driver Daniel Ricciardo, set to take the Spaniard's seat at McLaren. The double switch was announced by both teams in a choreographed series of new releases. McLaren have been chasing Ricciardo, who will partner with Lando Norris, and Sainz had been in negotiations to stay with McLaren beyond 2020, but the appeal of joining a top team has convinced him to move. The domino effect in the driver market was triggered when negotiations over a new contract between Ferrari and Vettel failed.
The Republic of Azerbaijan.
On that note, we end our sports. We play again tomorrow night. Have a lovely night. My name is Brian Otwal. Back to you, Smriti.
All right, Brian, thanks very much. As you say, we will play again tomorrow and bring you all of the day's top stories. Do be sure to join us then. Thanks for your company. Flora Atieno has been our sign language interpreter tonight. I'm Smriti Vidyarthi. Have yourselves a good night and stay safe.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar.
I help women find independence by training them in fish farming. It's tough on my back, joints, and can cause headaches. Panadol Extra relieves multiple types of pain. If symptoms persist, seek medical advice.
Listen to me. I just found the money that Agatha took away from you. I'm going to give it back to you in exchange for my daughter's life. Let's just leave this place, forget everything, and head back to the States. Because of Erica?
Will you marry me? You don't have to answer right now. I can wait, Erica.
No.
No. Where's the rest of the money?
I'm going to give you the rest of your darn money when you let